I know, I'm very late to this, but better late than never, I suppose. So a month ago, Victor Tanzig gave us the titles for Season 7. They aren't finalized though, so they may change within the coming months, and holy fuck, they just did. So it turns out Family is now Grief, and Wraith is now Trickster. Well, this is definitely going to be a bit troublemaking. As I already wrote titles using the titles that were given 2 months ago, or like a month ago, so I'm definitely gonna have to go along. But one of those titles weirdly fits with my story, and you'll see later. So the titles themselves at first glance are very simple. A bit too simple for stories of Sodor. Now knowing Tanzig, I know he can make complicated stories with pretty much any title, but these titles are just too simple. Like thinking of random words. With historical events in mind, I know exactly what this is gonna be about. Britain's railway steam ban. Now this is an interesting one, as engines cannot be scrapped, so they aren't completely banned. Maybe we could say that all steam engines that are faceless are banned, yet non-faceless ones are still allowed, or some regions that are stricter can forcibly retire them. No final firings though. This causes trouble among the engines, as they are all sad that their kind is over. Or at least partly over. I would have this be a sequel to Inconvenience in a sense. Bill and Ben worry and think they will be replaced by diesels. Because they get worried, they cause an accident. But Edward and Boko both assure them that while Diesel would come to Sodor, they wouldn't be replaced. And when they say Sir Topham Hatt would bring in a new diesel, they get worried. They do say a diesel named Patrick will come in and maybe have him look like a mean diesel, yet end up being nice at the end of the day. I would not like to see Tanzig do what the Recovery Patreon League did, as in that episode, Patrick is just another Francis copy-pasted with even the same voice, if you can believe that. Here, maybe give him a bigger personality than just Big Bully Diesel and more death. I'll admit, the first thing that I thought of was the season 16 episode with Swish. But I ain't sitting through a nitrogen episode just for this video. Overall, I think that this is where the titles suffer. They are way too simple to guess, like random words with no connection. But I just had an idea. What if the Flying Scotsman came to Sodor on a visit, and Gordon wishes to go abroad too? It's about his wish and desire to do that, and at last, manages to go to London after a mainland engine derailed, leading to Gordon Goes Foreign. Oh dear. Another one bites the dust now. And I have a feeling this death will be on par with Season 5. And that's amazing, as I always love dark stories. Hence why Season 5 is my favorite. Though I have a feeling it is going to be about Holgate coming back after escaping from prison. For those who don't know, in Troublemaker, Holgate got sacked, and after getting divorced, he started causing trouble, leading to his arrest. It is said he was planning something bigger. This is where the big part comes into play. He starts causing several accidents unexpectedly, and it all goes too far one day when Duck's accident from T1E2H3's Tarnished Legacy comes into play. And basically, it's a realistic adaptation of the special, albeit shortened a bit. Okay, I have a big feeling about this one, and hence why the episode was changed from Family to Grief. Then bingo, this is it. I mentioned Tarnished Legacy earlier, and here is where it leads into Phantom Saboteur-esque territory, and maybe the end of the trial from Tarnished Legacy to keep the whole family bit. Holgate is still on the loose, and the last part of his plan is to kill Robert Watson, so he kidnaps Topham into lowering Watson to an unknown area transported by James and tries killing Watson, but James's driver leaves just in time and calls the police, where Holgate is arrested and sentenced. An action-packed 2-part adventure that brings back the emotion and action of the 5th season, yet also being something the fandom may enjoy. Now I know it's just the Engines of Sodor finale cut down, but I did make my own changes, so it's not a copy, just a heavy inspiration, if you could say. I will say Tanzig needs to focus. He needs to really focus on this one, because the G word is sort of, it may be used in songs and it may be used commonly by people, but it ain't the nicest word, so maybe Victor could have it be not against the Romani people, as hell, I'm a Romanian myself, where a lot of Romanis are from. So I really don't want to get offended. I'm really not sure about this one. Maybe you could change it to Romanis, maybe? But anyway, I digest. So I will make my own little story by saying that some Romanis went from neighboring countries onto the island of Sodor. The engines at first are mixed. Some accept this. However, engines such as Stanley aren't okay with it. That is because Stanley had a bad experience with Romani people, and so doesn't like the idea of them coming onto Sodor, and so he even insults them. Scarlowi is absolutely furious and tells him off about it. But Stanley is still suspicious until one day when he is saved by one such person, and his views improve on the matter. That way, I can keep the idea of the Romanis coming to Sodor, I can have the story be interesting, and at the same time also make sense. Now, I know you might be thinking, oh, but Tanzig said this, that about Romani people, yeah. Well, it's with educational purposes. Knowing Tanzig, I know he wouldn't insult Romanis, and with the title, I mean, it is kind of used nowadays, and the word was used frequently back then, so fair enough, I guess. And it is sort of an educational story about respecting Romani. So what is said is an example of how not to behave. Okay, so initially, I had the idea of having Wraith be my version of Season 6's Oetics. Yes, it was originally going to be called Iterations, but after realizing the title doesn't make sense, I changed it to Oetics. This was an idea that I used for my version of Season 6, and also for the German 01 locos, my version of Season 6, as I worked it with him as we are best friends. But after seeing that Wraith was in fact titled Trickster, this is ultimately the point where I had to think of an idea on the spot to get it done in time. So I'm going to say that it's a mix of the idea of Wraith and Trickster. An engine pretends to be a ghost. Maybe, let's say, a visiting engine from the mainland, like Justin, decides to play a cheeky little trick on Percy by painting himself as Thomas, acting like Thomas, and even trying to do the same voice. Percy, at first, admittedly believes this, but then when Justin is caught, he gets furious at Justin, and they sort of form a little rivalry. But Justin is a visiting engine, so this rivalry is only temporary. This episode may have an adaptation of Old Reliable Edward, but different. Joey is assigned to be Nelford's shunter while Sam is broken down. He sometimes has to help Gordon up the hill, and when doing so, Gordon does not thank him back. So he talks to Percy, who thinks they could teach Gordon a lesson. Percy, when pulling the local train, is followed by Gordon, and Percy, going intentionally slow, gets Gordon stuck. Joey at first leaves him stuck, but decides to push Gordon up the hill for the good of the passengers. Gordon decides never to not thank Joey again. This one is definitely the trickiest one, as it's very unclear what the foresight would be. Now, saying these episode titles are unclear is like saying water's wet, but I had to think a lot about this one, even checking comments on Victor's post. I could not find a good plot, for God's sake! So I decided to think, and in order to actually finish the video, I decided to make a simple plot line. So it's about the engines in need of another diesel, and Barry suggests Francis. James is outraged. However, Barry reminds them that Francis' behavior had improved a lot after Mr. Phillips was found, but the others, though, are still uneasy. The next day, it turns out Barry was right. Francis had come. And while he was more cheery, the engines are still uneasy and think he will cause trouble. So Francis is put to work, and while he doesn't complain or cause trouble, he still feels offended that he is ignored. One day, he is assigned to take some fuel. However, he bumps the trucks too hard accidentally and they run off the track. Some engines understand it was an accident, while others, like James, now is sure Francis did it on purpose and made it look like a crash, and is now more horrid to him than ever. This is the finale, and a pretty big one. And spoilers, the Tug's theme isn't in the credits. Anyway, James is still very cold towards Francis and gets to a point where he hates him and wants him off the island. Francis tries to ignore and tries to prove himself, but James thinks it's trying to look good. That is until one winter day when James breaks down because his injector failed, deep freeze style, and above is a big road bridge. Francis, who was pulling a passenger train, arrives and sees James broken down. Suddenly, BAM! A piece of the bridge falls and the bridge slowly starts to collapse. Francis uncouples from the train, jumps to the rescue, and pushes James to safety. The bridge finally collapses and smashes into Francis, crushing him, killing him. James is shocked at this, as the same one who he hated was the one who saved his life. All the engines are sad at Francis's heroic sacrifice, but James is the most devastated. The same one who he thought was nothing but trouble was his savior. He feels very guilty for his actions and wonders if he had survived, would he have been forgiven by Francis, or would he have become friends with him? However, those questions cannot be possible.